At the observation deck of her luxurious hotel, Elara gazed at the endless spectacle of purple and amber clouds spiraling across the atmosphere of Jupiter 99. The gas giant's immense striations painted the sky in a perpetual twilight, while floating formations of crystallized hydrogen drifted by like ethereal icebergs. The celestial haven, her hotel, was a marvel of engineering brilliance, its spiraling crystal towers and gravity-defying archways seemingly mocking the planet's crushing atmospheric pressure. The violet hue of her skin reflected the gaseous storms outside as she adjusted the environmental controls. At 37 standard years old, she moved with the elegant poise of her Centaurian heritage, though the slight downturn of her luminous eyes hinted at a deeper melancholy. "My AI companion," she said through the hotel's comm system, "the atmospheric pressure is rising again. We should initiate barrier reinforcement protocols." "Proceed," she commanded, her accent clipping the words with precision. "And run a diagnostic on the anti-gravity generators. They've been fluctuating since morning." The hotel's crystal walls hummed as additional power was diverted to the shields. Elara watched as a massive gas-dwelling creature, easily the size of an earth whale, glided past her window, its bioluminescent patterns pulsing a greeting before it disappeared into the colored mist. A proximity alert flashed across her screens, signaling an approaching unmarked shuttle. Elara frowned. She wasn't expecting any guests, and in her experience, unscheduled arrivals rarely brought good fortune. "Initiate identity scan," she ordered, studying the craft's erratic trajectory. Unable to comply. "Shuttle registration appears to be scrambled." However, life signs indicate a single human occupant. The shuttle lurched dangerously close to one of the floating hydrogen crystals. Elara's fingers tightened on the control panel. "They're going to get themselves killed. Direct them to Landing Bay 3 and activate the guidance beacons." She arrived at the landing bay just as the shuttle made a rough touchdown, its hull scarred by the caustic atmosphere. The airlock cycled, and out stumbled a human male, tall, lean, and completely drenched in condensation from the pressure changes. "Welcome to the Celestial Haven," Elara said coolly, noting his worn clothing and the way his eyes darted around the bay. "Do you have a reservation?" He flashed a disarming smile, running a hand through his wet dark hair. "Would you believe me if I said it got lost in transmission?" His voice carried a hint of Earth's Australian accent. "No, honest to a fault." "I like that." He extended his hand. "Name's Kai Harrison, and I find myself in need of accommodation." Before Elara could respond, the entire hotel shuddered, warning lights flashing as the anti-gravity generators began to whine. "That doesn't sound good," Kai remarked, his casual demeanor shifting to alert interest. "Security protocol engaged," the AI announced. "Anti-gravity generator 3 is experiencing critical failure. Atmospheric pressure exceeding safe parameters." Elara's fingers flew across the nearest control panel, rerouting power. "Wait," Kai interrupted, moving beside her. "Those readings you've got, cascade failure starting in the primary coils. Rerouting power will only accelerate it." "And you know this how?" Another violent shudder ran through the structure. Kai was already moving toward the generator access panel. "Used to work maintenance on the Europa colonies. Similar system, different scale. You got any spare photonic capacitors in engineering storage? And get them, and some thermal paste, quick now, unless you fancy a nice trip down into the crushing depths." Elara hesitated only a moment before accessing the storage unit. When she returned, Kai had the panel open and was elbow-deep in circuitry. "Beautiful system," he muttered, accepting the components. "Logical, too. Bet you never expected the quantum harmonics to desync, though. There we go." His hands moved with practiced efficiency, bypassing safety protocols to implement a fix that was either brilliant or suicidal. The generator's whine peaked, then settled into its normal hum. "That should hold," Kai said, closing the panel. "Though you'll want to replace the secondary matrix within a week. It's showing wear patterns consistent with." He stopped at Elara's intent stare. "What?" "You arrive unannounced, clearly without funds, yet possess considerable technical expertise. Why are you really here, Mr. Harrison? Would you believe I'm just a wandering handyman down on his luck? No, she laughed. There's that honesty again. Look, I admit I'm broke, lost everything in a business venture gone wrong, but I'm good with machines, decent with people, and willing to work. You need help. I saw at least 3 systems on my way in that could use maintenance. This is not a charity, Mr. Harrison. Call me Kai, and I'm not asking for charity. I'm offering a trade, my services for room and board, plus, he gestured at the generator, I just saved your hotel from an unpleasant descent. That's got to be worth at least a trial period. Ilara studied him carefully. He was right about the hotel needing maintenance. Good help was hard to find this far from major trade routes, and he had demonstrated genuine skill. 3 days, she decided. You will work where I direct you, follow every rule I set, and if I sense any hint of criminal activity, you'll be out the airlock. Understood? Crystal clear, boss. That smile again, charming but with a hint of something deeper. I promise you won't regret this. I already do, Ilara muttered, but led him toward the staff quarters. As they walked, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had just invited far more trouble than mere mechanical expertise into her carefully ordered world. The hotel's AI tracked their progress, and deep in its secured memory banks, made note of the new arrival. After all, its primary protocols weren't just about maintaining the hotel's systems. They included monitoring all potential connections to its missing creator, Ilara's husband. And Kai Harrison had just triggered several of its deep search algorithms. The staff quarters Kai inherited were sparse but functional, suspended near the hotel's core where the artificial gravity remained most stable. Through his small viewport, layers of gaseous clouds rippled like silk curtains in impossible colors. Breakfast is at 0600, Ilara informed him, standing in the doorway. You'll find uniforms in the storage unit. I expect you properly dressed and at the service entrance in 8 hours. About that, Kai picked up a uniform, examining its crisp lines. Any chance of dinner? Haven't eaten since 0600. She repeated firmly. Perhaps hunger will encourage punctuality. The door whispered shut behind her, leaving Kai alone. He waited several minutes, then pulled a small device from his boot and began scanning the room. The hotel security systems were impressive, more sophisticated than any tourist establishment would reasonably need. Interesting. The morning found Ilara in her private office, reviewing the night security logs. The hotel currently hosted 12 guests across its 30 luxury suites, a mix of wealthy tourists, traveling merchants, and 2 beings whose identities were carefully encrypted in her private database. A soft chime announced Kai's arrival at the service entrance, 5 minutes early. Ilara switched to that camera feed. He wore the uniform well, she had to admit. The charcoal fabric highlighted his athletic build, though he'd ignored protocol by rolling up the sleeves. Your first task, she told him through the intercom, is cleaning the exterior viewing windows in Section C. The atmospheric storms leave residue that corrodes the transparent aluminum if left untreated. I noticed the damage patterns yesterday, Kai finished. The Europa colonies had similar issues with sulfuric compounds. I assume have proper protection gear? Ilara frowned. In the maintenance bay, Mr. Harrison, and do not interrupt me again. He gave a mock salute to the camera. Yes, though you might want to call me Kai. Mr. Harrison makes me feel like I'm in trouble. You are in trouble. The protective gear is rated for 2 hours of exposure. I expect all 16 windows completed in that time. 16 windows in 2 hours? His eyebrows rose. That's barely 7 minutes per window. Then I suggest you stop wasting time talking to cameras. Kai's laugh echoed through the comm system. You know, most people find me charming. I am not most people, Mr. Harrison, and I do not find anything about this situation charming. She switched off the camera feed but kept the vital monitors active as Kai collected the gear and began his work. His movements were efficient, practiced, yet another contradiction in his carefully crafted persona of a down-on-his-luck drifter. The morning passed in a blur of routine tasks. Ilara checked on their more demanding guests, supervised the kitchen droids, and updated her private logs with any potentially relevant information gleaned from overnight conversations. She was reviewing maintenance schedules when the AI alerted her to a problem. "Madam Ilara, there appears to be an irregularity in Section C." She pulled up the external cameras. Kai hung suspended against the hotel's crystalline surface, but instead of cleaning, he was examining something near the window frame with intense concentration. "Mr. Harrison," she snapped through his comm link. "Explain yourself." "You've got microfractures forming along these seams," he replied, without looking up. "Recent, too. Probably from the pressure fluctuations yesterday. Want me to repair them while I'm out here?" "You are not authorized to perform structural repairs." "Maybe not, but I'm also not keen on being this close to a potential breach point." The fractures are small now, but with the atmospheric stresses, he traced one with a gloved finger. "Give me another hour with some sealant compound and I can return inside immediately." "Ilara," his voice lost its playful edge. "These need fixing soon." She studied the readings from his suit sensors. The fractures were real and potentially dangerous. "Return inside," she repeated. "We will discuss this after you've completed your assigned task." To her surprise, he complied without further argument. But as she watched him work, she couldn't shake an unsettling feeling. Those microfractures shouldn't have formed so quickly, even with yesterday's generator problems, unless... She paused to analyze data. "Computer, analyze the crystalline structure degradation rate in Section C compared to standard atmospheric erosion patterns." "Analysis complete," the AI responded. "Degradation rate is 47% higher than expected based on current environmental conditions." Ilara's fingers tightened on her chair. If someone was deliberately weakening her hotel structure, she needed to update her security protocols. And perhaps, though she was loath to admit it, having someone with Kai's technical expertise on staff wasn't entirely unfortunate. A proximity alert interrupted her thoughts. Another unmarked shuttle was approaching, this one broadcasting legitimate credentials that set off all sorts of warning flags in her private database. "Interesting timing," she murmured, watching the new arrival. One way or another, she would discover what game was being played in her hotel's corridors. She had worked too hard, lost too much, to let anyone compromise this operation now. On his window cleaning platform, Kai observed the new shuttle's approach with carefully concealed interest. Right on schedule, he thought. Though Ilara's security systems were going to make the next part considerably more challenging than his employers had suggested. He glanced at the hotel's elegant spire stretching above him. "Sorry, BB," he whispered to himself. "But we've all got secrets to keep." Later that evening, Kai found Ilara in the maintenance bay, her violet fingers dancing across a holographic diagnostic display. The hotel's artificial lighting caught the iridescent markings along her neck, a trait unique to Centaurians that seemed to shimmer when she was deep in concentration. "Finished with those windows," he announced, leaning against the door frame. "Even got that weird purple stuff off the corner of Suite 12, though I'm pretty sure it tried to eat through my glove." "That weird purple stuff was a silicon-based life form," Ilara replied, without looking up. "They nest in the upper atmosphere. Usually harmless unless agitated, like by someone cleaning their window." "Precisely." She finally turned, and Kai caught a hint of amusement in her luminous eyes. "You're fortunate it was just a juvenile. The adults are less forgiving. You know, most of my employers mention the carnivorous wildlife during orientation. Most employees don't invite themselves aboard during atmospheric storms." Kai clutched his chest in mock offense. "And here I thought we were bonding over our shared love of dangerous maintenance work." He nodded toward her display. "Speaking of which, about those microfractures?" Ilara's expression hardened. "They will be handled by qualified personnel." "I am qualified. More than qualified, actually. And I'm betting your qualified personnel can't get here before those fractures spread to critical systems. You seem very concerned about my hotel's structural integrity, Mr. Harrison." "Kai," he corrected automatically. And yes, I'm concerned about the building I'm currently living in, not crumbling into a gas giant. Call me old-fashioned. Their eyes met in a silent battle of wills. Finally, Ilara sighed. Show me your proposed repair procedure. Kai grinned and moved to the console, very aware of her proximity as he pulled up the technical specifications. See here, if we reinforce these junction points with a nanocarbon mesh before applying the sealant. His hand brushed hers as they both reached to adjust the display. That would require access to restricted maintenance protocols, Ilara noted, not moving away. I noticed you've got more security lockdowns than a military base, unusual for a tourist hotel, wouldn't you say? Perhaps I simply value privacy. Privacy, security, and enough encrypted channels to run a small intelligence agency. Kai turned to face her. What are you really protecting up here in the clouds? For a moment, something vulnerable flickered across her features, then her professional mask slammed back into place. Your concern for my hotel is noted, Mr. Harrison. You may proceed with the repairs under supervision, but do not mistake technical confidence for trust. Wouldn't dream of it. He stepped back with an exaggerated bow. Though I should warn you, I'm very confident and very trustworthy. Some might even say charming. Some might be easily fooled. But there was a hint of warmth in her voice that hadn't been there before. As they gathered the repair supplies, Kai noticed her watching him with that same analytical intensity she used on her security feeds. Looking for cracks, he realized. Well, she wasn't the only one good at finding structural weaknesses. The repair work would take them well into the night shift. Alone together in the hotel's outer section, plenty of time to either earn her trust or completely blow his cover. Kai wasn't sure which prospect made him more nervous. Ready when you are, boss, he called, hefting the equipment. Try not to push me out an airlock if I do something brilliant again. The night is young, Ilara replied dryly, but as she led him towards Section C, Kai could have sworn he saw the ghost of a smile touch her lips. Above them, Jupiter 9's eternal storms painted the sky in sheets of amber and violet, like nature itself was reflecting the tension building between the hotel's unlikely pair. Neither noticed the small maintenance drone that followed their progress, its enhanced sensors focused on Kai with particular interest. The repair work required them to access the hotel's outer shell through a narrow maintenance corridor. Kai went first, trying not to notice how the close quarters brought him within inches of Ilara as she followed. Watch your step, she warned as a tremor shook the passage. The gravitation fields are weaker here. Worried about me? Kai steadied himself against a wall. Worried about my equipment, she corrected, though he caught her steadying hand lingering on his shoulder a moment longer than necessary. They reached the access point, and Kai whistled at the view through the transparent service panel. Jupiter 9 storms raged in full glory. Massive lightning bolts carved purple-white paths through the clouds, illuminating shapes that might have been floating creatures, or might have been something else entirely. Beautiful, he murmured. Terrifying, but beautiful. Like many things worth protecting, Ilara said softly, almost to herself. Kai turned to study her profile as she began calibrating their equipment. The storm light caught the iridescent markings on her skin, making them pulse like bioluminescent patterns. He'd met Centaurians before, but none quite like her. You never said how you ended up running a hotel in the middle of nowhere, he ventured. You never said how you ended up broke and desperate on my doorstep, she countered. Touché. He began applying the nanocarbon mesh to the first fracture. Though I did tell you about my work on Europa. Yes, very convenient expertise. Kai focused on the delicate repair work, choosing his next words carefully. Not convenient. Earned. Sometimes the hard way. He rolled up one sleeve further, revealing a web of old scarring. Pressure breach, maintenance lost. Two good friends that day. Ilara's fingers paused in their work. I'm sorry. Point is, I know my stuff, and I know when something's not right with a station structure. He met her eyes. These fractures, they're not natural wear and tear, are they? A long moment passed, filled only by the muted rumble of distant thunder. Finally, Elara spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. No, they're not. Want to talk about it? No. But she didn't immediately return to her work. Instead, she studied him with those luminous eyes that seemed to see right through his carefully constructed persona. Why are you really here, Kai? The use of his first name caught him off guard. Would you believe me if I said I don't know anymore? To his surprise, she almost smiled. That might be the first honest thing you've said since arriving. They worked in companionable silence after that, moving from fracture to fracture with increasing efficiency. Kai found himself admiring the way they fell into a natural rhythm, him applying the mesh while Elara followed with the molecular bonding agent, their movements synchronized like dancers. Last one, he announced, pressing the mesh into place. As he shifted to give Elara access, his foot caught on a loose panel. He stumbled, the zero-G environment sending him floating awkwardly. Elara caught him with surprising strength, her hands gripping his arms. They hung suspended for a moment, faces inches apart, her violet skin almost glowing in the storm light. Careful, she breathed. Always, he replied, very aware of her proximity. Then his eye caught something behind her, the glint of metal where there shouldn't be one. What's that? Elara followed his gaze, her expression intense. Hidden in the panel seam was the edge of what looked suspiciously like a surveillance device, not part of the hotel's standard security system. We should finish the repairs, she said quickly, releasing him. But Kai was already reaching for the panel. This isn't yours, is it? Someone's been, Elara's voice carried a warning edge. Some discoveries are better left unmade. He turned back to her, seeing the conflict in her expression. And some secrets are safer shared. Their eyes locked in another silent battle of wills, while outside, the storm raged on as if nature itself was holding its breath to see what happened next. Step away from the panel, Elara commanded. But Kai noticed her hand trembling slightly as she reached for her communicator. Someone spying on your hotel, he said quietly, holding his position. Question is, are they spying on you, or are you spying on them? A particularly violent thunderclap rattled the corridor. The surveillance device glinted again, like a predator's eye in the dark. Both, Elara finally admitted, lowering her gaze. They watch me, I watch them. It's a dance we've been performing for years now, since your husband disappeared. Her head snapped up. What do you know about that? Station gossip travels fast, especially when the owner is a mysterious widow who runs her hotel like a military operation. Kai kept his voice gentle. The question is, why are they still watching? Elara's markings pulsed with suppressed emotion. Because they think I know something. And perhaps I do. She moved closer, her voice dropping to barely a whisper. Tell me, Kai Harrison, if that's really your name. Do you believe in coincidences? Not in my line of work. Neither do I. Which means your arrival, your convenient expertise, your interest in my security systems, she pressed a finger to his chest. You're either exactly what I need, or exactly what I fear. The tension between them crackled like the lightning outside. Kai could feel his carefully laid plans unraveling, but something in her eyes made him want to risk the truth, or at least part of it. What if I'm both? He asked. Elara's finger traced up to his collar, and for a wild moment, he thought she might kiss him. Instead, she activated something in his uniform. A small shock ran through his body, freezing his muscles. Then you'll understand why I can't take chances, she said softly, catching him as he slumped forward. Don't worry, the paralysis is temporary. Just long enough for us to have a proper conversation about who really sent you. As his vision began to fade, Kai managed a weak smile. Anyone ever tell you you've got trust issues? Only those with something to hide. Her face swam above him, beautiful and dangerous as the storms outside. Pleasant dreams, Mr. Harrison. When you wake up, we'll see what other secrets you're carrying. The last thing Kai saw before consciousness fled was Elara's expression, not triumphant, but tinged with something that looked almost like hope. Kai awoke to the sound of distant thunder and the sensation of being thoroughly restrained. His head throbbed as consciousness returned, bringing with it the memory of Ilara's betrayal and those luminous eyes watching him fall. "Welcome back." Her voice drifted from somewhere behind him. "Comfortable?" "You know," he tested the restraints, finding them professionally secure. "There are easier ways to get me into your private quarters." "This isn't my quarters." Ilara stepped into view, still wearing her maintenance uniform. "This is my interrogation room." Kai glanced around the sterile space, noting the advanced scanning equipment and the way the walls seemed to absorb sound. Fancy setup for a hotel owner. An impressive resistance to nerve toxins for a maintenance worker. She held up a medical scanner. "Your implants are military grade. Black market, if I'm not mistaken." "Would you believe I won them in a card game?" "No," her lips twitched slightly. "Though I'm beginning to appreciate why my security systems found you intriguing." Before Kai could respond, an alarm blared through the hotel's comm system. Ilara's head snapped toward a display screen, showing newly arrived guests, a group of well-dressed traders whose biosignatures set off multiple warning flags. "Friends of yours?" she asked sharply. "If they were, would I have let you catch me?" Their eyes met in a charged moment of mutual assessment. Finally, Ilara made a decision. "Computer, release restraints." "That's it?" Kai rubbed his wrists as the bonds retracted. "No more questions?" "Oh, I have many questions. But right now, I need your expertise more than I need your answers." She tossed him a weapon, small, elegant, and definitely not standard hotel security issue. "Can you handle a Centaurian pulse pistol?" Kai checked the charge with practiced ease. "Better than most humans." "Where did you get?" Questions later. "Those traders are actually biomex smugglers. They've been probing my defenses for weeks, and now they're making their move. The fractures in Section C, a test of our structural integrity. They're looking for something specific." Her expression darkened. "Something my husband was working on before he disappeared." Kai's mind raced, pieces of a larger puzzle clicking into place. "The basement levels?" "Yes." Ilara activated a hidden panel, revealing a cache of advanced security gear. "Whatever's down there, they're willing to kill for it. I've managed to keep them out so far, but now they're done playing nice." Kai caught the combat vest she threw him. "You know, most hotels just worry about bad reviews. Most hotels aren't built on top of experimental research facilities." She paused her preparations. "I'm trusting you, Kai. Don't make me regret it." "Wouldn't dream of it, boss." He flashed her his most charming smile. "Besides, you still owe me that proper conversation about trust issues. Survive the next hour, and maybe we'll have it." They moved through the hotel's service corridors, Ilara leading them through a maze of hidden passages he hadn't known existed. The sounds of combat echoed from above. The smugglers had already engaged the hotel's automated defenses. "Your guess?" Kai asked as they climbed. "Secure in their rooms? Emergency protocols locked down all residential sections." She stopped at a junction, checking a tactical display on her wrist. "The smugglers are focusing on the main security hub. They think that's their way to the basement, but it isn't." "No." A rare smile crossed her face. "That would be too obvious." An explosion rocked the structure. Kai studied Ilara instinctively, his hand lingering on her waist. "Please tell me you have a plan beyond shoot the bad guys." "I always have a plan." She didn't move away from his touch. "I also have several metric tons of experimental technology that absolutely cannot fall into their hands. And a mysterious husband who may or may not be connected to all this."